Hi, how are y'all?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I know we don't have much time, so I'm kind of just going to dive in. I really want to focus on obviously the indigenous part of this film. My first question is kind of where did the idea come from to focus on it being Comanche Nation?
Well, I really wanted to make a movie that was told primarily through action. And I didn't want it to only be a visceral thrill ride. I wanted to infuse it with heart. So I thought, well, what if it had the engine of a sports movie? What if it was an underdog story? And thinking about that, I felt like, well, wouldn't it be great if the protagonists of the movie were also the underdog in some respects? We're a culture that is never in the mainstream, that is sort of and not only Native American, but Comanche specifically have so often been relegated to playing the sidekick or the villain. So in making them the leads of this movie, the experience of the viewer watching the film would be linked to the experience that Nadu goes through inside the movie. And there's actually a specific moment in the very beginning of the movie when Nadu walks out her teepee to go collect breadroot, that is a callback to the movie The Searchers. That's a very famous Western, or John Wayne Western, that has influenced Star Wars among many other movies, that had a terrible representation of Comanche specifically. So we sort of wanted to reclaim that imagery. Sorry, I didn't say it. In The Searchers, there's a famous shot through the doorway, a silhouette of the doorway as we push past, and the cowboy enters frame or settles against the frame. And it's been referenced in movies time and time again. So that was all the origins of this.
And Jade, when it comes to Comanche culture, it's a big thing to our kakus and takas when it comes to representation. What were those steps that y'all took when it came to making the most authentic movie when it came to language and face paint and regalia and things like that?
Not only did we just take steps, we took big strides, because this movie will be a standout and hopefully be used in the future for representation, not only for Comanches, but for Native American people as a whole, because everything is authentic, from developing our face paints, from the colors used in the wardrobe, were developed from earth tones and earth paints, and everything came from our culture, even the words, like making up the orange totsia, and this mythical flower that we have that is like a key component in the film, everything. And we had a lot of people, as from back home, that worked on the project, but even up in Canada, because we did make this during the pandemic. So it was during the shutdown, the borders were closed, but we had a lot of people interning that were First Nations and that are still working in the film industry today, because sometimes that's all people need, is just a foot in the door, and they're able to work. But as when we spoke earlier, I talked about even the hide art representations at the end. Everything is appropriate to this period. It's not rock art, it's not ledger art, it's hide, which they would be using at the time. So, and depicting our greatest stories, as we know, that's how we recorded things, as well as, our oral history.
And what was the importance of getting Indigenous people to be casted as these characters? Because I know sometimes in the past that's not always the case, and there are some that have been casted that aren't Indigenous.
I think it was really important to the story. And I think that, just having a Native producer on there, that's one thing that makes it really important, because you can bring that level you can really address that level of authenticity, because I think it's important. We had to have people that were comfortable with the language too, because not everybody can speak Comanche. And even for us, sometimes things are like tongue twisters, right? when we're trying to say things. So we want to have people that, embraced our language and that was comfortable. And we didn't have to hire people afterwards because all the actors wanted to reprise their parts in Comanche, which to me was just amazing. Amazing. So it's a first, as you know, it's a first in a lot of ways for Comanche people. It's the first time that we've ever had a brand new movie come out in our language from the beginning, not a movie that, they've tried to, what we should probably add this, but from the get-go. So it really kind of sets that standard and sets that bar.
And Dan, I don't know if this will be a question for you, but was it difficult when it came to the fighting scenes? I know that obviously the weapons that the Comanches had aren't going to be the weapons that were used in the Predator films. How did you go about working with that?
Well, it was exciting. I mean, that was one of the initial impulses, was seeing the ingenuity of Nadu, that we weren't able to incorporate a lot of Comanche ways of fighting. We didn't have a lot of room for horseback sequences. But I think hopefully spiritually, like even just her developing that tomahawk and the way that she uses it, there's a spiritual link to like embracing that Comanche were very adaptable and fought in very clever and smart intellectual ways. And so we also had this guy, Kevin Starblanket, who's First Nations and he has a background he served in the military and was law enforcement and a survivalist and helped collaborate with Jane and in thinking about how they may have fought, because there's not a lot of written record, of course, about the specifics that are in this movie. So, we worked hard to try and make it feel as authentic as possible while also delivering really exciting, badass action sequences.
And was it always a major point or key in the movie that the lead was going to be a female Comanche warrior?
Yeah, it was always the case. I just, for whatever reason, find that character far more relatable, and really wanted to make the movie about perception and expectation of what the perceived top dog is compared to what the actual top dog is, what the alpha really is, and loved making a movie about someone who would be rejecting what one parent gave, in this case, what the mother gave her in the beginning of the movie, and then realizing at the end of the movie, I need to embrace that as much as I need to embrace the other thing to take on the threat, to take on what seems impossible to me. So that was a huge part of it, and always there. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're out of time, but thank you guys both so much for this interview.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Bye.
Bye.